Welcome everyone to the TechCon podcast. We have Neal Bloom with us today. Neal, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Good, good. Thank you for joining us. So I'll give a quick introduction for you, and then we have a set of five quick fun questions. And so sound good? Should I go for it?
Let's do it.
Okay. Neal Bloom is a managing partner at Rising Tide Partners, where he invests in early stage founders through a community of builders focused on supporting one another. He previously co-founded Portfolium, a platform connecting students and professionals with employers that was acquired by Instructure in 2019. And Neil is also active in building tech ecosystems through events, community initiatives, and conversations around founding and funding. And with that, the first question is, you've spent years in investing in and supporting companies that solve real-world problems. What problems are you most focused on helping founders tackle right now? And why does that matter?
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks. So a lot of obviously things we build usually come from problems we faced in the past. At least those are the ones we end up being the most passionate about. And when I was founding a company and raising capital, founders often just chase any money as opposed to the right money for them. And really the right community for that founder specifically, right? They just jump into their local startup community and say, hey, I'm just going to hope to find other people like me. And so I'm really interested in kind of right people, right place, right time, both on capital, smarter capital for the right founder, which comes to the point where the capital ends up being the lowest value piece compared to everything they get from that investor and that community. And the same with the founders that other founders should be networking with, the right ones, not just the opportunistic ones that they happen to show up at a bar and meet.
I love the way you put it, lowest value piece. Make the capital the lowest value piece, and that makes the capital really smart. Very interesting. And are you focused on a certain geographic location? Is this more online as you build up
Um,
communities?
yeah, good question. I tend to find I'm doing it locally in my own community almost as just like a lab to just see and test and iterate fastest, right? I can put people together today, tonight, right? I can't do that in New York tomorrow as often. So I tend to do and start things in my backyard in Southern California, and then I go and take it to other geos. But I find the in-person makes it much richer of connections. So yeah, I'm
Oh,
doing it all over the country right now.
okay, cool. And given your experience founding companies, investing, building communities around founders, what is changing fast in the startup ecosystem that most people are still underestimating?
A few things. I think a lot of founders have not come back out of virtual environment post-COVID and don't realize how much quicker they could be sharing knowledge with people. They're just doing it opportunistically over a Zoom. And that's the same for talent and the startup itself. And now in this new AI world where literally the software is changing every day, I think people need to come back to sharing knowledge in person. And I
So
think
human
people
interaction.
human interaction in person, physically, like more than just let's have a meeting to talk about one conversation. It's the everything else that happens. And you probably know this because
Put
you
some words
jump.
around it, like what is the everything else that happens in a
I mean, in
in-person
an
environment?
office environment, we used to call it the water cooler talk. But it's the context. Honestly, it's really filling in the gaps around, contextual relevance to everything. As well as now we have this opportunity to actually transcribe everything we're saying these days and use it for building relevance around people. And so we don't have to remember everything we know about someone anymore. We can actually dial up. But people actually, I think, are underutilizing AI note takers for this exact reason. And note takers can be used in person as well from your phone. I sit down and have a coffee. I say, you mind if I transcribe? Thumbs up. Great. I now have a richness saved where I can go back and recall a ton of context I'm having with people. Auto save that to my CRM. Boom. I can, have tons of data to recall around people. So I think all that is just really missing right now.
It's very interesting how a Zoom meeting and an in-person meeting, and I've never been able to articulate it. So thank you for adding the words, but it's sharing the energy in the same space, the serendipitous conversation that was one is forced to have around grabbing coffee, finishing coffee. It's always very interesting to me where these things go. Okay, next question. Looking at the current startups landscape, where are you seeing the most hype that isn't delivering value for the founders or communities around them? So it's the exact opposite of the last question in that sense. So
This one's really hard to answer. I mean, I think from an investing landscape, that the AI piece is actually what's really hard right now to differentiate real versus hype. You know, there's a lot of tools who've come out that still feel like toys, and there's other tools that come out that have changed your life. And determining which one is which, it still feels really hard. And which one is worth investing in and will have 100x return potential is still really hard. So I think it's more because of how new some of the tools are coming out. It's hard to know what's hype and what's not. As well as the VC world, every year seems to pick a new hype cycle to go after. Last year was defense tech. A few years ago was blockchain. A few years before that, right? A few years before that was consumer and consumer products, and that's gone. So I think one, the VC narrative is what's the hype cycle. Just hearing them talk versus what the consumer's actually adopting. That's what's real. So I think that's the part that has to have to learn to pay attention to.
What about the team component? Like, it's interesting if the VCs are. I thought it was mostly the team was the most important part, but you're saying in addition to that, then the tools are now becoming a question mark as to
Hmm.
how the
That's
problem
a
is
good
being
question.
solved. Right?
I think team actually still matters even more. I think these days actually execution matters 10 times more, is what it turns out. You see companies that the top tech companies used to be 3x annual revenue growth. Now the top tech companies are doing 10 to 40x annual revenue growth.
And
So
which is
that's a
interesting
team.
because, sorry, I cut you off, but
Yeah.
if the team is what you're investing in, and no matter what tool they're going after, you know that they'll iterate fast enough on it, right? To your earlier point, they'll go for the in-person meetings, they'll see what is actually getting customers. So you're saying teams are becoming more important now? Like the
Yes.
right team is becoming.
Distribution, execution, adoption. That is not just a tool. Do it happen to do the thing. You can tell all of us every day switch from GPT. Yesterday was Claude. Yesterday before that was Gemini. Tool doesn't matter. It's just are the people showing us how to use it? And that's on them to figure out how to make sure it gets in the hands of us and we switch the credit cards or not.
It's very interesting. The judgment layer is becoming more important.
Hmm.
Okay. And through your work building communities and connecting founders and investors, what is one decision that made the biggest difference in helping those efforts actually work of recent?
Yeah. I mean, I think when you decide to commit to a founder, you're committed for the life of that investment. And I don't think that's true for every investor. I think there's a lot of investors that re-underwrite every day, even after they've funded that founder. And I
Mhm.
think the founder who's committed and has full conviction on what they're building needs to know that they've got the backing of the people who have equity in their company. And so that's something I think about all the time. Like, I've committed this founder, I'm in. What should I be doing when they're sleeping? What can I be doing right now to help them be successful without them asking for help? So that's a lot. I think it's founder conviction and not backing down from that until they give you a reason to. Certainly, there are times where founders give you a reason to change your belief in them. But until then, you got to be in. You're in all the way and help them be successful. Because if they're successful, everyone else is going to be successful around them too. And the world's going to change for the better. That's why I invest in founders.
And you invest early stage. So just for everyone watching, I think I should ask, this is not in the list, but what is the ticket size and what are the top three things that structurally you bring to the table? So is it, so you said money is the least valuable, but still the ticket size matters. And then I'm assuming, I often wonder things come down to what time goes towards the problem. So do you have a structure around that? Hey, I'm going to meet you once every 2 weeks, once every month. How do you think about your commitment towards these founders?
Yeah. So for us, Rising Tide Partners, our style is to get to know founders for as long as possible before we invest. That means it could be time can be measured in amount of meetings we've had or literally the relationship over decades. We've got all the above. So we want to know people for infinite time so that when they actually ask for the money, it's a no-brainer. In fact, we are now approaching founders, while they're working on something brand new and saying, hey, we've got 1 million to 2 million set aside for you. So that's where we want to invest at the first beginning stages and with that kind of lead intention of funding the founders that we know for the longest amount. from a de-risking standpoint. Then what we
Neil
hope,
at
yeah.
time, so neither do you. So I guess I must ask you, like, if you were to think of the companies you've invested in, uh, what has been the average number of hours that have gone into a relationship before which you're like,
Oh, number of hours into a relationship? I don't know, but the minimum amount I've known someone is 2.1 years before we've invested. That's not a guarantee, I could, but that's
no,
just
no,
the
no.
average over the portfolios that
So
we spend a lot of time getting to know
so
people.
for founders, they've been in touch with you. They've been sharing some update with you. That's what staying in touch is, and you've
Yeah.
gotten to see them and sort of
I mean,
sample
even
them.
their past company, I've invested in founders where I knew them for 10 years building their company. They had an exit and they were on my list the second I knew they were having an exit that I will
Hence,
back
the
you when
community
you're
angle
one.
is important. Okay.
Yeah.
Last question, and after this, we're done. What's the one fun fact about you, Neil, that you haven't put on LinkedIn?
Hmm. One fun fact. Um, I have recently committed to the carnivore diet, which means I
Mhm.
only eat meat-based protein, zero carbs, and live in an energy base of ketosis, which just means off of fat. I now get hangovers off of eating an apple, literally. So the choice of having a terrible day usually comes from having any micro part of a carb. It's not fun per se fact, but that my lifestyle has completely changed for being on it for 10 months now. And I probably
Wow,
talk about
10
it.
months is wow. Wow, impressive. Well, thank
Thanks.
you so much, Neil, for giving us your time and for this interview.